Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 348, cover dated October 1997. So a simple cover here of Rogue and Gambit back to back with an implied rip on the cover. Drawn by Joe Madureira, inked by Tim Townsend. It's pretty decent image, the characters in profile. What I don't like about the cover though is the green background. I don't think it works. There's something off about it. Yeah, as I said, a simple design. This wouldn't have taken Joe Madureira too long to draw. One little detail that I do like is a kind of motif of his when drawing Gambit over the last year or so. Always the face in deep silhouette, indicating that he's hiding a dark secret. So the cover caption, divided they shall fall. Is there going to be a split between these two lovers? Let's open it up to the splash page here. And it's a pretty decent splash page. And we've got all of the different characters from the previous issue, including these new ones, the bounty hunters, Spat and Grovel here, former colleagues of Gambit, with the implication that he once upon a time was a bounty hunter or mercenary himself, in addition to being a thief. The dialogue here is all basically catch up in relation to what happened in the previous issue. The image itself is very nice. The colors are quite dark because they're underground. And yeah, the narrative captions here just basically introduce the characters as well. So a nice full page image splash. Let's turn the page and see, do we get a double page spread? Yes, indeed we do. And this picks up from the end of the previous issue where the trio and Grovel and Spat were faced by Nanny, a character last seen in Uncanny X-Men 113 and believed lost in a volcanic eruption that was supposed to have destroyed Magneto's former subterranean Antarctic base. But here she has showed up at the end of the previous issue along with these cyborg primates and other kinds of animals. So what has she been up to in the interim period, however many years it would be in Marvel time? Like the composition of this image, we're kind of on a slight Dutch angle here, not too much in the way of background detaining Madureira here, but a lot of different figures. I think that the color art is a bit too dark, so it's kind of difficult to see and clarify the figures distinct from each other. But otherwise it's a decent double page spread, and not inked by Tim Townsend because we've got a bunch of inkers over here. Well, let's look at the creative credits. Scott Lobdell writer, Joe Madureira penciler. There is one page, there's 22 pages of story and art in this issue, one page by an uncredited penciler, Andy Smith. I'll point that out when we get to it. And then a team of inkers, Tim Townsend, John Holdredge and Alvey. My feeling is that this particular double page spread might have been inked by Alvey, but it could be John Holdredge, but it's definitely not Tim Townsend for sure. So there's nothing really interesting in the dialogue here. Joseph recognizes Nanny, and so that's interesting because he's getting some access to his memories prior to his life as the man called Joseph, and Nanny there welcomes him. Welcome to the lair of Magneto. And the title of the story, Because I Said So. So obviously a reference to Nanny and her kind of maternal authoritarianism. Now here's a page that is Madureira inked by Tim Townsend. Townsend's style, very recognizable because it's very precise, using a crow quill pen and microns. And here there's a discovery by the characters that their mutant powers aren't working. So Gambit discovers it first of all, and they all drop to the ground. And they're taken prisoner by Nanny's cyborgs. And Nanny tells them it's nap time, boys and girls. Okay. And here is another page, very definitely inked by Tim Townsend. You have that very precise hatching and cross-hatching kind of in the background there. That's very distinctive of his style. And here we have Trish, Tilby. So the only two characters that are free at the moment are Trish, Tilby and the Beast. And Beast is, like out of sorts. Probably his mutant powers have been impacted by Nanny's neural inhibitors that seem to be operating across the underground subterranean lair. So Trish there is just thinking about her life and how adventurous it has been since she went on that date again with the blue-furred beast. But she thinks to herself, he's also one of the smartest men on the planet. So she sees the X-Men having been captured. This is going to make for an incredible story, she thinks to herself, but only if I make it back to civilization alive. Now, if I can just get back to where I left him without being noticed, I should be all set. But she has been noticed by this little bat. I like this storytelling here. The three horizontal panels, but with the bat wings breaking the border of the panel there and the shadow cast on the wall of the cave. My only regret is, continues Trish in her thoughts, I haven't been able to find Bishop and Deathbird. Hank said he wondered if they even returned to Earth when we did, but they must have. I mean, where else could they be? So here we find out where else they could be. Fittingly enough, this place has no name, much like its mistress. The original name of this outpost, here in a galaxy millions of light years from Earth, has been stricken from the history books of the proud star-spanning race called the Shi'ar. She, however, is now known only as Deathbird, the much-feared Shi'ar viceroy, a woman accustomed to getting her own way by violent means if necessary. So, was Deathbird, did she betray the X-Men? Well, let's see. So she's speaking here. I know you can hear me, she says. I know what I'm about to say will be very painful, but there was a tragic accident en route to Earth. All your comrades are dead. You've been severely wounded, crippled, and I brought you here to facilitate your rehabilitation. Would have been better if this was on a page turn, but of course, who else could it be except for Bishop? So it seems, yes, he's sustained major trauma and he's receiving treatment there, and she continues with the speech to him. Many of your bones were crushed during the decompression of the cabin in the instant before I teleported the two of us away to safety. So that raises the question, why didn't she teleport the others? She continues, you fought valiantly to save your teammates, Bishop, Beast, Rogue, Magneto, the one you insist on calling Joseph, Gambit, even the pathetic Earther known as Tilby. They all met the Great Silence with courage. Only you and I survived, Bishop, but do not fear, brave warrior. You never truly belonged with those weaklings. Here you will mend. And you can see that Bishop has got tears in his eyes. He's conscious. He's hearing what she's saying. He believes her. The X-Men are dead. And she backs out of the, what would we call it, like the treatment room. Become stronger as a result of your trials. Here you will mend and become stronger as a result of your trials. And in time, the two of us will rule an empire. And the door closes with a Star Trek sound effect. So, Deathbird has taken a shine to Bishop. She admires both his courage and his warrior skills, and it looks like she wants him now to be her consort, and the two of them will rule an empire. Which empire? Of course, the Shi'ar Empire. So she's going to mount another challenge against her sister Lilandra. And then we switch back to Earth, the Filkner Ice Shelf, the Weddell Sea, Antarctica. And so this is where they're being held prisoner by Nanny. And there's a bit of dialogue here between Spat and Grovel. And Spat here turns to Gambit, like they're all chained up here. And she says, now, I don't suppose the master lockpick can get us out of this mess he got us into. And Gambit says, don't think I ain't trying, petite. But apparently Nanny learned from her experience with my good friend Stormy. So that's a reference all the way back to Uncanny X-Men 113 by Chris Claremont and John Byrne. The classic story where Storm used her thieves' skills. She took a lockpick out of her headdress and used it to unlock herself from the restraints and the rest of the X-Men too. And Gambit then turns to Rogue. And here comes an interesting moment in this story. So he's concerned about her. Is she all right? And she's kind of hesitant there. Turn the page. This is good on a page turn. Look at that. Look at that for a face. Not to worry, Rogue, he says. If you and I are here, chances are Beast and Bishop landed somewhere near. Off, she says. I said, take your filthy hands off me, punk. Essex paid you big time to do your job and you did it. Now back off, or so help me, your guts are going to be hanging all over these tunnel walls. So who is this that Rogue is channeling here? Look at the cat's eyes. Look at the fangs. It's Sabretooth, yes. And this is a callback all the way back to the Mutant Massacre in the Morlock tunnels, all the way back to Uncanny X-Men 211, 212, 213. He doesn't know what is more horrific, so Gambit is aghast. That's a good expression on his face. Madureira is really selling that. The sight of the woman he loves, completely overwhelmed by the memories of another, or the words that erupt unbidden from her throat. Familiar words. Words he's heard echo in his head every night for the past several years. So he has had a rivalry with Sabretooth. This is an experience he had with Sabretooth, and it's being channeled here by Rogue. But why? Sorry, Remy, she says. With my powers negated, I think memories I absorbed in the past that I thought had faded are swimming to the surface. And then she doesn't remember what she said. Did I say anything strange just now? So Spat knows what she said. No, Cher, says Gambit. Nothing to worry about. Nothing at all. But it is something to worry about, and it's something Gambit has to worry about, because his dark secret is going to come out, and it will come out in the significant upcoming issue 350. So Magneto there is in a special cell, and he's slamming his fists against the perspex or glass. This is obviously much more than glass, he thinks to himself, but I will find a way to be free, as surely as my name is. And then we've been teased, like, is he Joseph? Is he Magneto? And Nanny addresses him now as Magneto as she brings him his food. And she's got a sing-song voice, but you know the rules, my little brave man, she says to him about releasing him. You wrote them. No mutant leaves here ever. Now eat, she says. And I like the way that Madureira sells, the ominous nature of what's going on with the shadow and silhouette over Nanny's face. So Magneto knocks the food to the ground. He says, I will brook this madness not a moment longer. I will not be treated as if I am some petulant child in need of supervision. For the last time, release me, or what will Nanny's response be? Well, violence. She grabs him by the throat. Do not take that tone of voice with me, child, she says. And she's got a look of determination on her face, and then she drops him to the ground. I'm only doing this for your own good, executing the directives you programmed into me. The world outside these walls is a very dangerous place, Magneto, and is getting more and more dangerous every day. I don't mean to upset you so soon before your bedtime, but you must see this. So she switches on the screens that have popped up, and here Magneto gets the news about Operation Zero Tolerance. And so you can see kind of representation of events from recent issues of X-Men. And Nanny says, how can I release you before you're prepared to deal with current events as they must be dealt with? You're right, Nanny, says Magneto. Or rather Joseph, that's interesting. Now more than ever, we are needed out there. You can't keep us here forever. So this is the page that I think is drawn by Andy Smith, and I think inked by Al Vey. And then we're back to more familiar Joe Madureira style over here. But there is another contender for the page that might be penciled by Andy Smith. So it may be that it's the Al Vey inks that are kind of making this a little bit less like Madureira's normal style. And this particular page, I think, is inked by John Holdredge. So we're getting past the pages more consistently inked by Tim Townsend. So basically Joseph narrows his eyes and he says, you're right, Nanny, now more than ever, we're needed out there. You can't keep us here forever. And she, as she turns around, says, watch me, now be a darling and clean up your room. As you and your friends have made abundantly clear, we never know who might be dropping in around here. From a distance she watches. Something deep within her mnemonic intellect is conflicted. There's something odd about her young charge. So, is this Magneto? Or a clone? Or what's going on? But Joseph does not notice her concern, because there is something amidst all these images that has captured all his attention For the first time he can recall since the moment he awakened on a Guatemalan mission, weak and amnesiac, that's a reference to 327, he's experiencing an emotion he cannot explain, a need for vengeance, and that is in respect of the screen showing Moira MacTaggart, who is calling for an immediate end to Operation Zero Tolerance. And you see, this also is a contender for a page that's maybe by Andy Smith, because the style of the art, it looks a little bit like Madureira, but also different. And again, this is a page that's definitely inked by Alvey. So is it Alvey who is changing in his inks the basic Madureira pencils, or is this the page by Andy Smith? It's this one, or this one is by Andy Smith. Maybe it's this one, actually. And anyway, so we have a little kind of one-page scene with Angel and Psylocke, who are returning from their Crimson Dawn miniseries to Manhattan, and they find the aftermath of Iceman and Cecilia Reyes having been in their apartment, issue 67 of Adjectiveless X-Men, and Warren finds spent shell casings, and he's concerned. Let's call the others at the mansion, Bets, and see. And she's disappeared. Where did she go? So this is one of her Crimson Dawn powers. And then the scene switches back to Antarctica, and a page that is most definitely inked by Tim Townsend. So you really do see on this particular page, in this anchor image of the Beast, the characteristics of Tim Townsend's inking style, the crow quill pen, but also the microns that he's using for tight hatching and very fine details. And I think I much prefer Tim Townsend on Madureira in this particular era. So Beast is thinking to himself, it's a wonder I dated all. So maybe that's not the most relevant thought I could be having at this moment, but it's honest. Every time I manage to convince myself that my merry mutant mates and I are entitled to a real life, a life in which we get to at least attempt to enjoy the world that we so often try to save, despite what seems like its best efforts to the contrary, something like this happens to remind everyone involved of the fatal flaw in that theory. We aren't normal. What started out as a simple date between Trish and I has somehow ended here, which leads me to the realization there must be something majorly maladjusted with anyone who consent to fall in love with me, irresistibility notwithstanding. That's funny little detail there at the end in Lobdell's dialogue for the Beast, and he even comments on himself. Enough jokes, Hank. Besides, they weren't working anyway. I can't shake this feeling of concern, this feeling let's turn the page, get past the advertisements. Been here before. So Beast is the only one of them that was there, a prisoner of Magneto back in X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 112 and 113. I know there was a reason I knew there was a reason this place was so familiar. I was once here, trapped by Nanny. So here in the background, we have his memory of that with Cyclops there as well, by Magneto. But I was also here when the place was destroyed, turned to molten slag by lava from the very core of the earth. Even if Magneto was behind this, it defies logic to think he could have drawn our ship to this exact spot. But if not he, then who? So here are Nanny's cyborgs behind Beast. Are they going to take him prisoner? Well, we shall see. Not far away. So the Rogue and the others have been moved underground, and they're in these kind of cave cells, and they're shackled to these stakes in the ground as well, and they're trying to pull themselves free or dig out the stake. That's what Spat is doing there. This is kind of an interesting page by Madureira, and Rogue says, this is all very frustrating. Spat crawls into her cave. Well, tomorrow's another day and I'm not getting any younger. That's a reference to the fact that she was the victim of some particular blast that has her aging backwards. So she's crawling into the cave there, and who's in there except for Gambit? And Gambit, again, this page inked by John Holdredge, not Tim Townsend. He says to her, you are getting younger every day, and between you and me, I feel bad about it because I know you got muddled up on account of me, because the blast was meant for him. We learned in the previous issue, happened in Madagascar. We don't know any more about it than that. But he continues and he says quietly, he doesn't want Rogue to hear him, but to be honest, I've been feeling bad about a lot of things I've done since we used to work together, which means I got to prioritize things spat. So is he going to kill her? No. He wants to question her, starting with who hired you and why. So she responds, tricksily, we both know why, Remy. And between you and I don't know how even a lowlife like you has managed to live with yourself after what you did. As to who, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. So we're being teased about this still. We're not going to get any answers until issue 350. And we can begin to see from this page on Madureira cutting out the backgrounds as he's coming up against the deadline to get these pages off to the inkers and then the book off to the printers. Like, see, for example, this page. Not very much at all in the way of backgrounds here. So he's threatening to force her to tell him, but Rogue cries out. And again, it's another one of these memories that are coming out of her with the loss of her mutant power. And here she is in a fetal position on the floor of the cave, and she's crying, shush, petite, shush, everything's going to be okay now. No one's going to hurt you now, Sarah. It's over. So that sounds like Gambit. I know this don't mean nothing to you now, girl, but someday I want you to understand. And she's got the red eyes just like Gambit. This is really good body language in the art by Madureira. You can see that Gambit is, really contrite. I'm sorry, he says, and we can believe him. Just the way the eyes are tilted there as well. The hair is almost flopping with emotion as well. I'm sorry, she says. Let's turn the page. Again, you can see not much in the way of backgrounds as we get to the end of the issue. Then he's zapped by Nanny. She tells them it's bedtime. Don't make me come back here, children, she says. It won't be pretty. I like the reverse silhouette there. Nanny leaves, looking menacingly at them with a grin. And then Gambit tends to Rogue. You okay, Cher? He asks. It's you, isn't it? She says. She's back to normal. The memories I have floating in my head, they're yours, the ones I picked up from the time we kissed. A reference to Adjectiveless X-Men 41, just before the Age of Apocalypse. So she knows, I can see it in your eyes. And he says, yes. And she replies, please, Remy, tell me what they mean. Tell me what was so horrible, so terrible, that you buried so deep in your mind that even I can't deal with it on my own. Not for me, for you. So will he confess? You want to do something for me, Cher? Anything, she replies, then please don't ask me. Even though you got no reason to, Rogue. Trust me, just this once. Trust me, and I promise that the moment I can make things right again, I'll move heaven and earth to do it. So he doesn't want to confess until he can make satisfaction for his sin. That seems to be the implication here. One more thing, Cher. With your powers negated, it means this may be our one night, our first, our last. So we saw a few issues earlier that on Christmas Eve, Joseph had a gift for Rogue, which was to temporarily cut off her powers so they could hug. And now her powers are gone, and Gambit is thinking, well, this is their opportunity, to hug too. But they're in a dire situation. It's not Christmas Eve. They're chained up underground in Antarctica. So there we go, a silent final page. Again, this one inked not by Tim Townsend, could be John Holdredge, I think, or maybe Alvey on this final page. But a good drawing by Madureira. So there you go, 2 pages of letters here. Nothing interesting anymore in the letters pages. It's all just hype for other titles that are coming out. Next issue, Maggot takes Manhattan. Rogue faces Gambit's secret. And Joseph confronts his past. All this leading up to our landmark 350th issue, which would turn out to be Joe Madureira's last. Advertisements for new titles. I picked these up. The Man-Thing one, written by J.M. DeMatteis and art by Liam Sharp. That was pretty decent. I also picked up the Moon Knight miniseries. Don't remember anything about the stories from these. And an advertisement for Journey into Mystery as well, which had become like an anthology type series. And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 348. This is all the build up towards the double-sized 350th anniversary issue. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.